Today, all we have to do is look at our watches, or any device capable of telling time, and we know the exact time of day or night. But this counting of time was much more difficult for our ancestors. Humans have been measuring time in different ways for several millennia. Some include tracking the movements of the sun through sundials, the use of water clocks, candle clocks, and hourglasses. Around 2000 BC, the ancient Sumerian civilization invented the 60-minute and 60-second system that we use today. The oldest method of telling the time of day was the sundial. We don't know when sundials were invented, but they were already in use in ancient Egypt and ancient Iraq. They are even mentioned in the biblical Old Testament. As time progressed, other ancient civilizations, such as the Greeks and the Romans, also used sundials. Around 1500 BC, the Egyptians invented the water clock, with 2 water containers, one of which was higher than the other. The water would flow steadily along a pipe, traveling from the higher container to the lower one. When the water level reached one of the markings on the lower container, it meant that another hour had passed. The water clock probably arrived in China through trade with Mesopotamia. The ancient Chinese improved the water clock's original design by adding a system that included chains and scales. Later, they created a version with liquid mercury instead of water, preventing the clock from freezing during the winter. During the Middle Ages, other models of clocks sprang up, such as the hourglass, clock hands, and candle clocks. The first medieval watchmakers were Christian monks who developed mechanisms to measure time and call to prayer. But the highlight of this historical period was the mechanical clocks. The first ones were invented in Europe around the beginning of the 14th century. Mechanical clocks were usually on church towers. They were very heavy because they used weights. The clock in Salisbury Cathedral in England dates from 1386. It is one of the oldest working clocks in the world and still has most of its original parts. The clock in Wells Cathedral, also in England, was built in 1392. It is unique because it still maintains its original medieval face. Above the clock are figures of medieval knights who ring the bells and turn a track every 15 minutes. The first pendulum clock was invented in 1656 by Dutch scientist and inventor Christian Huygens and was patented the following year. Huygens was inspired by Galileo Galilei's investigations of pendulums, which began around 1602. The wave of watchmaking innovations of the 18th and 19th centuries, following the pendulum invention, made it possible to improve watches. They were handmade by individual craftsmen at great expense. The lavish ornamentation of pendulum clocks of this period was a status symbol for wealthy people. Watchmakers in each country and region of Europe developed distinctive styles. In the 19th century, industrial production of watch parts made pendulum clocks increasingly affordable for middle-class families. During the Industrial Revolution, the faster pace of life, work shifts, and public transportation, such as trains, depended on more accurate timekeeping, made possible by pendulum clocks. Around 1500, Peter Henlein in Nuremberg, Germany, made the first pocket watch. In many countries, this was the trigger for various inventions and improvements, especially in Europe. The watch industry developed greatly. The pocket watch became the most popular since the development in the 16th century, until watches emerged after the First World War. During the conflict, there was a transitional design, the trench watches worn by the military. Santos Dumont is said to have invented wristwatches. The story is only legend, as the first known wristwatch was made in about 1814 by the watchmaker Abraham Louis Breguet, commissioned by Carolina Murat, Princess of Naples and sister of Napoleon Bonaparte. The invention of watches allowed people to better organize their time in their daily tasks, bringing about important advances for mankind.